I've been given a message for all of the world. It's important that I share this because there is great purpose to what is happening to us. I have encouragement for you, some insight and context into what our world is going through. There's also a love story that was foretold decades before it was manifest. A love story which became the foundation of Love's Way. Lastly, I'll share a vision in which I experience love manifest here in all of the earth. I was shown our world's future so that I could share with you and give witness to the great work that is unfolding for our species. Some of the words I'm going to use may trigger those who've had a bad experience with religious people in our world. I'm here to honor your experience, though. I'm not a religious person myself. Although I don't belong to a religion, I can tell you that it was Jesus who set me free and brought me into this divine relationship with my Creator. Without the medicine He brought me, I wouldn't even have the will to carry on in this life, because apart from His Spirit, I found no peace in this world. I know many of you can relate to that, which is why I choose to share this and let you know that there is a living medicine that even now is waiting for you, that even now is loving you. There's a bit of information to cover, so this will be shared in 3 parts. For this video, I'll give you a little background on myself and share an experience which enabled a lifetime of foretelling dreams, an experience in which a holy energy consumed me while I was wide awake. First, let me say this. Do not believe people just because they tell you something, even if they look cool, have a great attitude, or happen to agree with everything you do. Test what you're told. Test the spirit of the entity telling you. Humans can be self-deceiving and require some discretion. Yes, this includes me. I know this stuff because I'm a human, and I'm not afraid to face my own demons. Generally speaking, our motivations will align with a single principle. Either we desire to serve ourselves, or we desire to serve all, which is inclusive of self. Now, this isn't to say you can't learn from a selfish people, or that a selfish person can't do something for others. We have all been selfish people. This is to say that an entity who keeps giving to others, continues to serve others, is likely to be an entity who will offer words that are true for all versus true for only themselves. We will be proven to be emotionally mature when we no longer require agreements to know how to honor one another. We will know and serve the light of love, which will forever hold us in its agreement.
But didn't you know how the love flow?
For the most part, I grew up in the northern U.S., South Bend, Indiana, Chicago, Illinois, and in a way all over the place because 3 years was the longest amount of time I'd lived anywhere. This was partially due to my parents following their dreams and leaving Texas while I was much younger to become ministers. Now, I love my parents dearly, but I did not see the same thing in organized religion that they did. At that age, I was certain that magic was real. I was certain that I could fly if only I could remember how. And I was certain that the behavior I witnessed in the church was more about man and less about the divine. This put me on a rebel's path. I could see that the grown-ups were full of it, and I was smart enough to go figure it out all on my own. Ain't that how we get, though? I went to a Christian school which was as fallible as any of man's institutions. Generally speaking, I'm sure I was a pain to some of my teachers because I was too smart for my own good and oftentimes bored enough to make trouble, especially if the class was near a chemistry lab or perhaps a supply closet laden with the original Legos, rubber cement, and number 2 pencils. This is to say, my mama raised me with manners, but as a teen, I was no saint. We were all hellions in our own special way, though, right? There was a girl, she was my best friend and a solace in this time. I wouldn't really realize what she actually meant to me for a few more decades, though. That's where the love story comes in, to be told in part 2 of 3, Tornadoes and a Destiny in Texas. Anyhow, apart from my lady love, I did find another exceptional and sincere soul there. This man was the man who had built the church and the Bible college that my parents were going to. I worked in their maintenance program to help earn my way through school. Just because I went to a private school doesn't mean my parents had disposable means. They were blue-collar folks finding their way too. Because of this, though, I got to see this man up close. And I did not see a man who was there to serve himself. I saw a man who was there to serve others. One time, he prayed for me in a church service, and it like to knock me out. Felt like an electrical jolt hit me. And to me, he was real. He was genuine. He was in touch. And his name was Lester Summerall. Thank you for being a good teacher. He's moved on from this world, so you just got to transmit that one with your mind and heart. Back to being a rebel teen. I was becoming way too punk rock for the Christian school and was dispelled for having the spirit of rebellion by a principal who was something like a Jerry Springer guest. In my mind, I thought, yeah, boy, just like Jesus. He pissed off the religious people so much that they murdered him in front of the world. So, it wasn't really a bad thing to me. I already knew the principal was a vile man anyhow. In time, he showed that to everyone. Public school went okay for a short bit. Then they said I missed too many classes, and because of that, I would have to do 6 months of in-school suspension before I could rejoin any classes. Like, that's a valid option to present to a growing entity wanting to learn and explore this world. No way. I had to quit high school. It really wasn't the right school for me anyhow. I left home to travel, skateboard, visit various Midwest cities, piss on all the posts and raise all the ruckus until my love of music eventually led me to the Chicago rave scene. That's where I learned about boots and pants. Boots and pants and boots and pants and boots and pants and pants. Boots and pants. Psychedelics had revolutionized my perspective at the time and had given me a great appreciation for dancing and electronic music. Magic mushrooms and LSD were part of that. But of course, these were illegal at the time, which is how I ended up in the one place no one ever wants to be. I ended up behind bars and jail for a sentence related to having LSD. The next foreseeable couple years of my life were to be spent on hold in this place. At this point, I was about as broken as anyone could be. I'm going to skip past a lot of the details, but it was a heavy ride. Other things had happened just before going in that made my life even worse. I had addictions. I was depressed. My mind was unsettled and overcome with fear. This was not a good time in my life. And in some ways, I suppose I was being granted a timeout. Luckily, it did work out because I don't think anybody finds healing behind bars without the ability to be highly introspective and self correcting. I'm pretty sure that more people are traumatized by that system than are helped. Just an opinion. My relief came quickly, though. In the first week, something happened. Something clicked, and I had given up all addictions, even tobacco. I wouldn't say that all my mind's problems were over, but I was granted a new start in some ways. I'd asked Jesus for help. A friend gave me a Bible on the way in, and I'd spent my downtime reading it and was looking for a new focus. I didn't know what I was in for, but I was on my way to finding out just how alive and vibrant one's relationship with the divine could be. This was just me talking to Jesus, to God. I never went to any meeting or talked to anyone else in jail about this. Now, I wasn't against the idea of there being a divine power. I just didn't see it in the religion that man had been selling. I was certain that there were forces in the world beyond our understanding. And in honesty, the scientific community I saw in our world oftentimes exhibited as much ego as the religions I observed. To me, this entire world was in denial, a product of fearing what we don't yet understand, driven by a need to label and even define things we don't understand just to soothe our insecurities. I kept up with my reading and began spending much time in reflection and meditation. If I wasn't writing letters, playing spades, or reading, I was meditating on spiritual questions and receiving my answers in dreams. I had never known it before, but dreams are an amazing place to learn. We can have entire experiences with all of the feeling in only the blink of an eye. Later in life, I was to travel to Tibet and learn Kung Fu from the Dragon Gate lineage. There, I was also immersed in this sort of dream training, which is part of their tradition. Some things can't be taught with words or even be explained. How amazing it is to be a human. My experiences only became stronger, more focused, and so deliberate that I eventually became completely immersed in it. Every day was an ongoing conversation, and heaven's full resources were on tap. I was constantly in prayer, talking to God, talking to Jesus, and continuing to grow this substance called faith. Rather than allowing myself to be hung up on things, I just pressed forward and realized that I was experiencing something living. If I ran across a passage in the Bible I didn't resonate with, I didn't allow it to become a stumbling block. I didn't allow myself to be hindered, as it seemed that this state of seeking is what was really needed. I was immersed in the water of life. I was being filled up and awakened to a realization which had simply been waiting for me. I was in the middle of this intense training ground. I was learning about the spirit, ego, and how to see this world for what it really is. There were challenges here I wasn't going to find anywhere else. At times, things were violent or just another day of not backing down. How to traverse all of this in truth. Every lesson seemed to be illustrated in such a profound way. Once a guard came onto the block very late at night. He was known for being a very loud talker, and he woke me up in the middle of the night. I responded in what I'm sure was a very direct way, asking him to be quiet. I know I don't feel well with being woken up like that. I'm working on it. The guard, of course, didn't take so kindly to be spoken to by an inmate like that, so it was off to solitary for me. No blankets, no clothes apart from my boxers, in a concrete room. Now, first, you're pretty indignant about the whole situation. Then the truth starts to set you free. You realize that the only experience you're entitled to is death. You realize that the only thing that you can truly control is what you choose to hold in your heart. You decide then and there to choose to embody love, even though your environment tells you different. When the guard came back the next day, I wasn't mad at him. By that time, I had already contemplated his perspective. A guy that's been picked on all of his life for talking too much and being loud. He was confused that I wasn't angry though. Sitting on the concrete ledge in my boxers, I could even offer a sincere smile. A week of this went by, and eventually another guard felt bad for me. He let me out, put me back on the block, under the condition that I not tell the angry guard who let me out. Even in that place, sitting in that hole, I'm given this grand illustration of humanity. The angry, hurt human putting me in there, and then the compassionate human letting me out. You could also say the angry, hurt human going in there, and the compassionate human coming out. From the outside, it looked as if I were the one in the cage, but I was the free one. More free than I had ever been. There are many things in life which this experience was beginning to validate. I was told that magic did not exist in our world. The grown-ups sought to invalidate the things I said were happening to me. I was told to get back in line and select from one of the approved choices. I knew they were wrong. Maybe I could even fly. One thing life has shown me again and again, for all I know, I don't know as much as I think, and neither do they. Better yet is being okay with not knowing and accepting yourself. Acceptance is a powerful perspective and something that we've all come here to learn in some way. Time goes on, and this experience, this daily awareness and seeking culminates into what would be one of the most mind-blowing experiences that this life has ever shown me. It was the night before I was to be released, and of all the things a man-child's ever waited excitedly for, being released is at the top. 0 days in a wake-up. For me, life had just gotten started, and I really wanted to get back to it. As I'm laying on my bunk, staring up, wishing I could sleep, but too excited to do that just yet, out of nowhere, this vibrating energy just slips over me and consumes my being. The voice inside my mind says, "Ooh, That's the Holy Spirit. At this point, I felt I was floating in darkness, immersed in this vibration. There was a sense of buoyancy as my consciousness observed what was like a screen in the darkness. Up to this point, I'd experienced a few lucid dreams. That one time, Lester Summerall touched me with what was like electricity, and the occasional UFO or light beam, which I was told wasn't real. I had zero frame of reference for having my consciousness taken over while I was wide awake. It felt amazing. I knew that everything was okay. And I knew that this, whatever this experience was, this was God communicating with me in as direct a way as possible. I was then shown the future, my future, on this screen. I saw myself speaking to people, teaching, and helping on behalf of heaven. My purpose, supported by my gifts, was being illustrated plainly. I was humbled and in awe of what was happening to me. When the energy left and I was returned to this reality, I was in shock. What a serendipitous event to sift through. I remember thinking, wow, future me dresses way more conservative than I ever would. God thinks I'm going to be a grown-up? All things in good time, though. I had a lifetime of learning ahead of me. I have much to build and destroy, a world to travel, and much internal alchemy to master before I was ready to be returned to my love. This began a new way of life where I always knew the guidance was only an ask away. A life where Spirit would speak to me and I would be given an undoubtable knowing about events that were happening in my life. I would never see this world the same again. I would never see people the same way. And I'm so thankful because now I can see the heart of the soul inside of you. And this causes me to react in love. That didn't mean I was perfect or that I knew any better than others. I'm still learning and still being okay with the imperfect being that I am. But I'm free to make my mistakes, free to see the things that this world wants to hide from me, free to see the truth and have enough love to stand up, set my sisters and my brothers free. So that's it for this part of the story. In part 2 of 3, I'll share the vision which showed me a future in Texas with tornadoes. And guess what? The girl in this story, she had the same vision. We'll present some artifacts for your consideration. It's a love story too. A little light for those dark days. Thanks for listening. I love you. Thank you for loving me.
Attune your hearts and minds to the quality of appreciation of others.